Good morning, FAWKES News. As we call our live chatters, the Fockers, FAWKERS. We try to keep this show as family friendly as possible. We are Fox News, bringing you real independent journalism, another perspective from the dying legacy media. How do I know legacy media is dying? Is that hyperbolic to say? I don't think so. Because even the new press secretary and the new Trump administration has offered exclusively a place at the table for podcasters and independent journalists. That's very exciting. I've always said that there is a certain, I don't like to say the left and the right anymore. I don't like to say the Democrats and Republicans because I think that is what the system wants you to say. I have many friends who share the same views I do, but are still mixed up in this two-party system. And therefore, they think that maybe we don't get along as much as they would like to think we get along because of political labels. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that there was a big overarching government. And I think the new files that are coming out, the JFK files, the Martin Luther King files, the 9/11, I think all of that is evidence to what a lot of people have been saying since early 2010, that there is some sort of overarching government. And what happened was is that propaganda media made everybody else believe that these were far right wing extremist conspiracy theorists because of who was in office at the time. But if you really got a close, if you really talked to these guys, if there was any independent journalists out there, and sadly, independent journalists like Project Veritas and things have gone away because of propaganda legacy media going after them illegally for the first time in American history. We've talked about that on the show. We did an entire episode on what happened to Project Veritas. Because when they got close to the truth, or, even as crazy it is to say, but Alex Jones, and he has said some preposterous things, but he has said a lot of things that if you really listen to him, if you really were a free thinker, if you really wanted if you wanted the full totality of events, of things that are going on, if you wanted all the perspectives, then you could not leave out the things that Alex Jones said and has said, and things that he has said that have come absolutely true. You cannot deny that unless you just want to. I heard one time when I was working at the bar that I owned, the rum bars, there was a customer that I valued greatly. And we had a lot of good political discussions, especially in the times just after COVID. They were very big COVID influenced folks. They did all of the vaccines. They got all the boosters. And I remember I said, have you heard the new episode with Peter McCullough or Dr. Malone on the Joe Rogan Experience? And she said, no, tell me you're not one of those. Tell me you're not one of those, Eric. And I said, one of what? She says, you're not one of those Joe Rogan people, are you? And I said, well, I don't know what a Joe Rogan person is, but I do listen to him from time to time, especially when he had the number 2 and the number 3 guy in the entire CDC and 2 of the men that have been working on pandemic outbreaks since the early 80s. If they come onto a show for 3+ hours, I would like to learn a little bit about what they had to say. And she says, Eric, that's poisonous. You shouldn't listen to Joe Rogan. I said, have you ever listened to an episode? No, I would never. No, I would never listen to a racist like Joe Rogan. Now, this is audacious and crazy because if you've ever listened to Joe Rogan, he's neither one of those things. He literally gives people a platform to talk. And he's had some really wild guests, but it's wildly entertaining as well. And I don't think there was any malice behind any Joe Rogan episodes. Joe Rogan didn't become politically radicalized until after he had Dr. Malone on and Peter McCullough and exposed what was going on, really going on behind COVID, which we are now finding out is 100% true. And then after that, they deemed him a racist and they pulled all the clips that they could as far back, and they did everything they could to socially persecute him, which is what they've done to everybody. As soon as Russell Brand flipped sides, they went after Russell Brand as hard as they could with insane allegations. They did the same thing to Tim Pool, obviously Alex Jones, Project Veritas. If you're not willing to believe that big legacy media or big government exists, then I can't help you here, and I can't have a political discussion or debate with you. But what I want to go back to is that if we can put our political bias aside, what you've been raised to believe in left and right, and it's not, it's a big government who puts people in charge and it makes you think that you have a choice. That sounds crazy, but it's true. And you have to look at the evidence that's being presented to you right now in real time. Listen to the episode yesterday that Jonathan Bates just did. Fabulous episode right here on Fox News. Real independent journalism, real independent reporting. You have to get the whole story. And when I'm coming at this, it's not about left or right. This is about going against a corrupt system. That's what Fox News is all about. I'm not here to be a part of the fight. I'm not here to be a part of the fuel. And I can tell you that legacy media has already infiltrated some podcasts. Some of the propagandists have already infiltrated some podcasts, and they're going to go very, very hard. The deep state will go very, very hard after podcasts. They want that one thing that you get wrong. And you know, I said it before that I think they're going to feed you. They're going to feed podcasters false information to make them run with it, only to say, "Oh, look what they just did." Fact check, fact check. And so it gets crazier and crazier. But I'm happy to do Fox News. The show does make me happy, and I want to dispel some of what's going on in legacy media, mainstream media. And when we talk about divisiveness, because a lot of the argument now is, well, how can you say it was divisive before? Look how divisive it is now. Well, it's not very divisive. Nothing has changed, except that the media and the way that they are going after the right wing or the Republicans, trying to create chaos and anarchy in the news. See, they could only do so much when Biden was in office. They couldn't create chaos and anarchy because he was in office, and they didn't want to show that he was tied to any anarchy and chaos, because that is what the big government had put in place at the time. They don't have to do that now. So now they're going to nitpick on everything that can divide you, and they're going to make salacious headlines and salacious statements. But if you are a real free thinker, you will soon realize that a lot of the things that Donald Trump is trying right now, and a lot of the things that the other free thinkers are trying to do right now and accomplish, are things that even you on the left would agree with in any other circumstance. The government's more liberal now than it ever has been. The things that Barack Obama talked about, deporting illegals, which didn't happen, or it did happen. He deported a lot of people. But what didn't happen was the media frenzy behind it is what did not happen. Barack Obama deported lots of, and he was very proud of doing so. And he was very boisterous, saying the exact words that Donald Trump says. You can go back and look that up. Typically, I would bring that up for you right now because we are a show with receipts. My producer is sick, and I do have a lot of receipts today. That's just not what I plan on talking about. But I promise you, if you type in Barack Obama illegal aliens deportations, it'll be the first thing that pops up. And his campaign speech. That's what he's going to do. What Donald Trump is doing right now with the federal government, guys, you realize that your taxes, some businesses, even local businesses, mine included, were taxed 39%, 39 point something percent. Let's round that off to 40%. 40% of hard-earned dollars are going to these condoms that you're hearing all about, that are being sent over to Gaza, to people who don't use condoms to begin with because of remember, the religious ideology in Gaza and in Israel is very extreme. The Middle East are the extremes in religious ideologies. Birth control is not a thing there, and us Westerners trying to force it on them is ridiculous. And it's not going to be used. You're wasting $500 million. I didn't even know condoms. I want to know who is pocketing the $500 million. What does a condom cost to produce? It's got to be pennies. I think I read somewhere, again, if we had Josh here, we would fact check it. So I encourage you, before you put out this piece of information, you fact check it yourself. But I think that the math was like $2 a condom is what they sold what they sent to Gaza at $2 a condom, $2 something cents a condom. Ridiculous at this point. Federal spending is so out of control, and the money laundering is so out of control in federal government that it has to be stopped. And that is why we now have this freeze, this hiring freeze. But we don't want to talk about it as a hiring freeze. We want to talk about only the negative. To clean your closets, you have to get rid of some things that were sentimental to you. Have you ever cleaned out your drawers and held up that t-shirt and you're like, oh, I remember the concert I bought this t-shirt at? But man, I have so many t-shirts. I have to get rid of some of them or else I'm a hoarder. I'm running out of places to put boxes of, keepsake t-shirts. When is the last time you needed that? When's the last time you said, you know what? I want to go back and look at that t-shirt from that JoJo concert back in 2006. Get rid of the t-shirt. And it hurts for a second, but you know what? Tomorrow when you wake up and you go into your drawer and you can find the Save the Children Before They Need Rescuing t-shirt, when you find that t-shirt and you want to wear that t-shirt, and you're like, man, today's a great day to wear that t-shirt. I wouldn't have wore this t-shirt today had I not cleaned out my drawers. By the way, I got this from Jaco Booyens Ministries over at Mercury One, Glenn Beck, Jaco Booyens, all those folks over there. And I'm proud to wear this shirt. Now we're going to get into this topic today here very shortly. I don't know why I went on a rant this early in the morning, but my point being is that with the government slashing and the hiring freezes, it's going to hurt a little bit. Some things that are sentimental are going to be taken away temporarily or maybe even forever. But when you wake up and we can move through without the bureaucracy, then it starts to make sense. And you're like, well, how is my friend losing their job or having their federal funds suspended at the moment? How is that helping society? Well, I will tell you that when I was in the military and I was going through the Special Forces qualification course, not only did I have a sergeant major to report to from my particular unit, 20th Special Forces Group, but I also had a liaison that I had to go to. And then that liaison had an assistant that I had to go to. And I never knew what was the chain of command because the liaison and the assistant were both civilians, but they're answering to the sergeant major who is actually in charge. So what is the chain of command? Can I argue with the liaison if I don't agree with something? If the liaison isn't doing my paperwork, is she allowed to tell me what to do? She's not in my chain of command. And why does the sergeant major, I get it that he needs an assistant, but why does the liaison need an assistant? And then who's doing work for the assistant? And you have all these minglings and all these cubicles that are doing absolutely nothing. Go to the PX on any base at 10 a.m. and look at all the people in uniform just walking around. It's like, what are you doing? Do you not have a real job here? And that is in every aspect of federal government. Everybody has an assistant. If somebody has to do more than 2 hours of work, they get an assistant to help them. It's like nobody wants to do work plus all the holidays, plus all the pay. And that's my tax dollars going to those things. Meanwhile, we have infrastructure, who the left loves to bring up, the infrastructure, and where the money to rebuild infrastructure comes from. Well, slashing some of these government jobs and putting that money and putting those jobs back into infrastructure would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it? I'm going to read you an email that just went out to a lot of federal agencies, a federal agent, actually an agent that listens to the show quite a bit from Florida, sent me this morning, and I greatly appreciate it. I'm going to read it to you. Let's get into today's show. Today's show brought to you by ghostbed.com. Obviously, I had a good night's sleep. That's why I'm so amped to be here this morning. I love GhostBed. I really do. Right now, 40% off across the board. Head over to ghostbed.com. Use that promo code Wolfpack. Valentine's Day is right around the corner. It's right around the corner. Give your loved one the gift that keeps on giving and giving. You know, I'm not talking about STDs that you could not have condoms here in the United States. You might have to go to Gaza to get your condoms. That's hyperbolic. That's not going to happen. But I'm not talking about any of that. What I'm talking about is the gift of a good night's sleep, you weirdos. You weirdos. I don't have Josh here to slow me down. Boy, you guys are in for a good one today. GhostBed right now, man. Valentine's Day. Look, if you can't afford the bed, you can afford the pillow, the massage topper. Do you know how ready a loved one is ready to engage in coitus? I'm trying to keep it family friendly on this show. After they've had a massage. Yeah, the chance of coitus happening goes up by 65%. It's scientific data, actually. The CDC says that if you get on a massage topper, obviously I'm joking. The CDC didn't say that. The CDC would tell you that massages are bad unless you go to one of the approved CDC doctors to give you that massage. All other massages are bad for you. I love going to the CDC and reading what they have to say about raw milk, but then going in another government website right below it talks about all the benefits of raw milk. Actually, okay, so if you go to our Instagram, Fox_news_Maine, I will screenshot the Google search of raw milk and let you see that the first two searches that come up our government agencies. One telling you how bad raw milk straight from the cow is for you, and the other one all of the benefits that come from raw cow. Head over to ghostbed.com. Also, we have factormeals.com/Wolfpack50. Meal planning to the next level. And I'll do a little bit on that later. I'm not going to bog you down right this second with ad reads because we're having a good time. This is a live show. We've got Elijah Ka, Will Cray, Armory Knight up in the live chats. Hydroman Blue, hi, nice to see ya. David J, up our resident naval man or military man. I don't know what he is. He's in California. Tyler S. So I just assume Mur 530. Thank you guys for being in the live chats. Share the show out if you're this far into the show right now. Now take the time to hit the like button. Subscribe and hit the notify bell if you haven't. And if you're listening on audio, just give me a 5-star rating review. That's all I ask from you to keep the show going. News that you can trust, news that's worth it to you, that's not part of the problem. News that isn't going to get you riled up, but news that you can actually use to have conversations and that we can all use to make this world a better place. Today, I'm going to cover Andre Petro's message to Donald Trump, which I think was what triggered my speech this morning. Because if we look at Andre Petro's message, well, it's the same message that we're putting out. It's the same message that Donald Trump is putting out. And if the conversation I had with a very liberal friend of mine, the conversations that we're having about federal spending, it's important to him because his loved one is losing a federal job or the federal job is suspended. And it's hard for him to see the better side of that. But once we start cutting out hundreds of millions of dollars going to the rainforest for gay rights in the rainforest, then maybe there can be money for the federal job that she has, that she might get a pay boost and a raise. You ever think of that? That maybe if we cut some of this audacious, ridiculous government spending, and if you think I'm being hyperbolic by saying gay, trans, agenda rights in the rainforest, go ahead and look that up for you as well. Again, I'm sorry I don't have my fact checker extraordinaire to bring up the articles, but we've talked about these things on the show before. Meanwhile, Californians and North Carolinians are suffering. There is a lot of government wasted spending out there that could go into the pockets of people who are actually working hard and deserve to have that money. Go through a process. I like to use this one. And again, this is important to me. And this is why I'm so passionate about it, because I worked in the ghetto for so long. You know, they built a YMCA in the middle of the ghetto, millions of dollars. YMCA in the middle of the ghetto, but then require scholarships to get in, money to get in, produce an ID, have forms filled out by a parent. Well, no kid in the ghetto. The problem is the ghetto is the way it is because the kids in the ghetto that make the ghetto bad, the criminals, the gang members, they don't have a mommy and daddy that will do that. They won't go and fill out a scholarship for you. So it wasn't really for those kids. It wasn't for those kids. It wasn't to make that area better. By the way, violent crime is still continuing to rise in that area. It's gentrification. You built that one so you could line the pockets of your architect buddy, your engineer buddy, and that it would look appealing so that you could put, and that's exactly what's happening. I said that was what's going to happen. They called me hyperbolic. They said, that's ridiculous. Don't even talk about that, Eric. It was on my beat when I was a police officer. Eric, you can't talk about like that. Don't talk about the city. Like the city is the one that employs you. Look at the gentrification going on in Southeast Raleigh right now. It is all white people moving into houses, buying up and boarding up all of the lower income, the homeless people, the problem people. They're boarding that up and building ginormous, like outside of the budget of any black person in that area, or the majority of black people that live in that area, they are not going to afford to live any of that. And meanwhile, now, you know, instead of taking what's already there and the culture that's already there and supporting the culture and supporting them and getting onto their feet and getting out of the gangs and actually cleaning up the gang area and letting those people thrive and survive on their own. No, what we do is we gentrify it and move them the frick out, and they can go on elsewhere and they can fuck up another town. Excuse my French. But that's what's going on in the ghetto. I worked there. I saw it with my own eyes. And they hold no accountability to the evil or to the bad people. In that when the bad man gets out of prison and he has to do his community service, but you have other organizations, black-run organizations, federally funded and granted organizations in that community that feel and openly discuss and talk about and brag about, we are not going to make them do community service, and they sign off on their paperwork without making them do anything. Why should that company, this person, these bad people in this neighborhood that create crimes against the people who are trying to make it in this neighborhood, go to jail, get out of jail early, and then don't have to do any public service to pay back or account for what they had already done because of another federally funded organization that hides behind races, that hides behind race, to just sign them off and let them go. Meanwhile, the actual people that are trying to do the right thing and are trying to give that neighborhood a proper noble name, why? Why even try at that point? If you're just going to move white people in and you're just going to allow the criminals to make me look bad, why am I even trying? And that's why I hate this, that when they say the ghetto, when I worked on my beat in Southeast Raleigh, when they say it's been like this since the beginning of time, I've been here for almost 30 years and it's been like this. That's your argument? That seems like a pretty ridiculous argument. That makes you look like a fool. So you're saying that you and all your comrades that have been there for almost 30 years, none of you had a plan to fix this 2 square miles of inner city hood life ghetto where all like 79% of the crime is committed? And none of you guys had, none of you guys could critically think your way through fixing this problem. Not one mayor, not one chief, nobody. Until this last 4 years, when all of a sudden they just whited out the entire neighborhood. But conservative Trump people are the racists. I could see with my own eyes. That is gaslighting. Everything that administration has done, and big government administration, George Bush, all of the guys, it's all gaslighting. They're all gaslighting you, telling you that you're racist or that you're Islamophobic or that you should hate Islamists. You should hate the Muslims when they create the problems that you have to be emotional about. They create these problems, but they don't want to solve anything because it's not real, because it's not left or right. It's big overarching government, and these people are getting paid. This organization that is federally funded and federally granted, that these people are making, I don't know, maybe 6 figures a year, close to it. They're making more than a cop. I guarantee you that. They're being federally funded to openly discuss, and you cannot go investigate them, that they're just signing off on people's paperwork. And we've known this. And when you try to create a project to go and undercover expose this, you're shot down and you say, no, you can't do that, because they don't want it to stop. They need the problem to exist. We need these criminals back on the street without repute. We want them to continue to commit crimes, to hold the man down, as they say. I know I sound hyperbolic today. That's what happens when I don't have a producer in here to interrupt me. I'm passionate about this stuff because I want America to be better. I want us to be more friendlier with the other side of the table. And right now, what I see is the people that are trapped between red and blue are the fucking, I'm so sorry, kids in the car. I'm so sorry. The people that are all up on red and blue, you're the problem. And that's 98% of you. So yeah, I'm probably talking to you. We have to stop. I'm part of the problem at times. I like to use red and blue sometimes. I'm trying better not to, and I think we should all try not to. We are against the big government. It's we the people, folks. It's we the people need to start taking back what is ours. Common sense needs to exist. And it's there for a reason. No, we are not getting rid. Nobody wants to get rid of trans people. Nobody really the majority, I should say, don't want to tell you that you in America can't dress as a woman if you want to. What we're saying is your willingness and your wantingness to dress like a female should not infringe on my rights and my freedoms. I don't want a boy in the girls' bathroom with my daughter. That's common sense. That's what we want. And we want common sense registration. And when somebody puts out common sense legislation, they make it a left versus right thing. And all of a sudden, now it's left versus right, and the right wants to get rid of transgenders altogether. That's just not true. And the right does it against the left as well. Like, we understand that in the abortion community, there are extreme circumstances and that we should have extreme empathy for folks, and that there should be some kind of education on how to do abortion safely, because abortion is not going to go away. I get that. And I think majority of people want to have a discussion about that or like that. But we don't. We only share the extremisms of both of the ideologies from both sides, and it creates this massive clash. Here's my point. This is, I said all of that only to get you to this Colombian president's daughter. And this is what she says. So, Colombian president's daughter, again, I always want to bring you guys receipts. And I don't have a producer here today to bring the article up for you. So I'm going to tell you, it's from Indie TV World. But you can go to New York Post and you can pull up an article that's exactly similar to this. This is India News Network. This is an India, a news network from India. And let me tell you the reason why I'm reading from the India News Network. And I've said this on the show many times, but for you new listeners, I think it's important that you know too. You can take what India's news is saying, what Australia's news is saying, even what Britain's news is saying, and then you can put it next to the American news, and you can see the similarities, but you can see the differences as well. But sometimes the differences aren't like a difference in opinion necessarily, or a difference in fact. It's a difference in how it is written and how articulated it is. And sometimes an India News Network gives you a little bit more detail that paints a little bit more of the picture that some of the American mainstream media may have left out if it benefits them. And India will do that too on the other. So I like to read what New York Post, what New York Times, what Washington Times, I like to read what they all say collectively, because I want to see the perspectives of everybody and not just one side of the story. And I thought if you want to go back and read NDTV World article versus the New York Post article, you will see how much longer this one is and how much articulated it is. And it answers a little bit more questions than the New York Post does. Because the New Post knows it's all about clickbait, right? Get you on for a second. You get those key bullet points that make you feel some type of way, and then they get out. They don't want you to read the totality of it. They calm you back down. They want you to be hyped up. They want you to want more, to go out and say things that are audacious and salacious so that we can have fights with each other. At the end of the show, I will address some of the chats, and I apologize that I'm not right now. There's a lot of really great people in the chats today. Josh, Tyler Evans, Greg LaMontagne from The Bar is Open with Beth and Greg, Society and Culture News on this network. We love them to death. Make sure you go and support them if you want all the TMZ style, all the fun news. I'm the Debbie Downer news. They're the fun news. The Bar is Open with Beth and Greg. Give them a follow. Colombian President Gustavo Petro's daughter, Andre Petro, has thrown shade. I like that the Indian News Network says has thrown shade. Like, I think that's cutesy, right? I don't know. Like, New York Post would never write something like that. New York Times would never write something like that. Throwing shade. They try to be, or they would try it, but it would come out way too nerdy and it wouldn't work. Has thrown out some sus news. Okay. Let me stop. Has thrown shade at the U.S. President Donald Trump after the White House threatened tariffs on the South American country. Miss Andrea took to social media to suggest that Colombia should send gringos, a slang term often used to describe Americans. I don't know. Is gringo the N-word for Americans? I personally don't think so, but I would say it's probably, if you use a slur similar to gringo to them, you would be seen as extremely racist. So, and that's all the media would talk about, right? It's so funny to me. I'm going to go on a rant about that here in a minute too, because that's important to me. Send the gringos, slang used often to describe Americans, back to the U.S. for every Colombian deported. Okay, interesting. Go on. For every Colombian deported, we will return a gringo from Poblado, wrote Miss Petro. I'm using her accent to make it fun for you because that's how I think Colombians talk. I had a Colombian girlfriend one time. That's how she talked. Gringos. For every Colombian deported, we will return a gringo from Poblado. If you don't know what Poblado is, that is where all the gringos go to fuck little kids. Oh my gosh, I said the F word again. I apologize. Child sex trafficking in Colombia, especially Poblado, Medellin, those areas, high amounts of red light districts, child prostitution, especially child sex trafficking. And guess where they were trafficked from? The United States of America. We traffic in America more children out of America than any other, into America and out of America than any country combined. We do both. But actually, we traffic more in the United States than we traffic out. Pretty interesting. It is a $238 billion industry. child sex trafficking. Remember that. Remember that number, 238 billion with a B, as in Biden. 238 billion with a B dollars every year in American sex trafficking. For every Colombian deported, we will return a gringo from Poblado. Basically, what she's saying is all you little rich gringos that are over here trying to screw, trying to bang. Sorry, my kids are extremely excited outside. Something must have happened. We're going to send them back. Alongside the rather cheeky message, she posted a meme of dolphins. Let me show you this meme of dolphins that she posted here. I think this is important, guys. This is what she posted. Here's what I'm saying. I'm not making fun of this. I say, por cada cambiano deportado, les developamos un gringo del poblado. Basically saying, for every Colombian deported, we will return a gringo from Poblado. That's what she's saying on Twitter in this meme. In April of last year, a 36-year-old U.S. citizen was caught in and this is why I like this news, because now it's going to go into deep. See, New York Post ended at this, but now we go more inside. Alongside the rather cheeky message, she posted a meme of dolphins jumping from the sea under a rainbow crested sky. As per reported in the New York Post, Ms. Petro was allegedly referring to the red light district in the city of Medellin, which has become a hub for U.S. tourists seeking prostitutes, la prostitutas. In April last year, a 36-year-old citizen, U.S. citizen, was caught in a hotel room in the city with two underage girls, 12 and 13 years old, before the Colombian authorities could arrest him. The American left the country, leading to President Petro appealing to the U.S. government to have the accused extradited back to Colombia. God, I wish we would have. The two countries jostled with each other after Colombia tried to refuse deportation flights from the U.S. Mr. Petro, a left leader, was elected to. So basically, what it goes on to say is that right now we're in this tit for tat with Donald Trump wanting to deport illegal aliens back to Colombia. Criminals, by the way, again, mainstream media likes you to think that they are going into schools and taking kids out of schools. That's not happening. That's not true. We're taking criminals out. And I'm 100% for this, because when I was a law enforcement officer, one of the craziest stories where I actually I went home and had to hide from my wife and go and cry in the back room because I did a search warrant on a Mexican drug house it was a Mexican gang members. They all had the tats on their faces, the numbers on the face, and there was a child in the crib. We'd been outside for about 3 hours waiting on a search warrant, only to find out when we started the search warrant that there had been a baby laying in squalor in a crib full of beer cans. Who had cried itself to sleep, you could tell, because it had the snot and the dry tears all over, and a soiled diaper. So while we're doing the search warrant, none of these these dirtbags wanted to tell us that they had a baby inside. When we try to get CPS involved, they're illegal immigrants. We don't get involved with that. They're not here legally. You have to have ICE come in and do that. But at the time, the Biden administration had taken over, and we were no longer, Trump was still in office. And that is when all the liberal DAs were saying, we're going to be sanctuary cities and we're going to remove ICE out of all the things. And so we had no ICE to come in and deal with it. And after we made all of the arrests by a supervisor, we were told to leave one woman behind to watch after the child. All illegal immigrants, all with the tattoos on their face, multiple stolen cars in the backyard, spray paint all over the walls, holes in the walls, just absolute squalor. It looked like something out of an 80s movie. Like out of the movie Thrashing, with all the skateboarders living in a home where they just like set the carpets on fire for fun, or something out of that movie Point Break, if you remember that movie. And it was so sad, because here's this baby that's an innocent child and innocent all of this, and it's living with AK-47s, guns just laying all around, and these are the kids that take one in the face on Christmas Eve because somebody was fucking with their gun after too much coquito, too much tequila. I have other stories too of Mexicans doing illegal aliens, South Americans, Mexicans, DUIs, and things like that, bragging about how they're just going to come right back. You're going to deport me. You're not going to take me to jail. And then I'm just going to come back. So we want the common sense to leave. Here we have Miss Andre Petro saying, we're going to deport your gringo sex perverts that are diddling our children. We're going to send them back to the United States for every Colombian you send here. Okay, thank you. Do you get it? You understand that we're on the same side. We're on the same page here, honey. Señorita. Yes, that's the point. We get rid of our illegal immigrants. No cop gives a fuck about the guy at La Cocina that's delivering his nachos del Bel Grandes or whatever, the, you know, your taquitos or your enchiladas. Like, nobody cares about the illegal aliens that might be working in your favorite a Mexican restaurant or your favorite hacienda or, you know, your construction, whatever Hispanic is working or South American is working, whatever sector they're working. Nobody cares. No cop wants to fuck with him. Matter of fact, I bet you every cop has more stories of letting illegal immigrants go without anything because they didn't want to give them a ticket for speeding or anything like that because they could see that they're, you know, in a work truck or whatever. You know, the problem here is that the insurance is a big liability because these Hispanics, they get in the car wrecks, they cause, you know, maybe a death or maybe some serious physical injury or just totaling out the car. And then in fear because they're going to get deported, they flee the scene. And now you're left with a loved one that has, you know, no justice, no insurance, and nobody to pay for anything. So, you know, it's a fine line. But no cop is like actively trying to hunt illegal immigrants that are doing the right thing. No, we have too many shitbags. A lot of cops, they want to find the bad guy, right? That's why they adopted that Punisher skull, ridiculously enough. We all did it, but that's because we wanted to find those bad people, the people that are raping and murdering and pillaging. That's what we don't want to waste our time, because if we're wasting our time, we're going to get made fun of in the locker room. I can't imagine sending a Hispanic family back home illegally that was guilty of no crime and happened to be friends with another cop's son or daughter or whatever. And the ridicule and what you would get, the chastising you would get in a locker room, it would be insane. No cop wants to do that. And if that cop does want to do it, I mean, listen, there's shitbags in every profession. So yeah, are there one or two out there? Sure. But that's not the majority of police officers. What we're doing is exactly what Andre Petro is wanting. Yes, exactly. You don't want the gringos that are over there getting involved in your sex trafficking, your tax-free sex trade, all the things that are making your country have more problems. Nobody wants that. We don't want that either here. It's not right or left. It's common sense. What else is common sense is meal planning to the next level. That's why we are proud to be working with factormeals.com/Wolfpack50, meal planning to the next level. Whether you want to get calorie conscious, protein heavy. Josh is up on that protein heavy. Dead Leg, my producer, he's up on that protein heavy. He just got hooked up on it this week. I was on protein heavy for a while. Now I'm on calorie conscious, but you can choose from anything: vegan, vegetarian, calorie friendly, whatever. You can get a meal plan that fits you. Getting ready for the summer. Get ready for Valentine's Day. Oh, that's another great Valentine's Day gift too. Get your loved one a meal plan so they don't have to make lunch before they go to work every day. You just go in the refrigerator, pick out one of their chef-prepared, fresh and never frozen meals that's delivered right to your door every day, whatever day of the week you want it. So they can come on Tuesday, they can come on Thursday, whatever. Mine were delivered on Tuesdays. They come to your door, you pack them out, and you got your meals for the week. You forget to update your menu for the next week, they just send you the same menu from your subscription. It's a wonderful subscription, and it is a great way to start eating right. You want to do breakfast and dinner, breakfast and lunch. Talked to a guy yesterday, called me messaged me just to say, hey, I tried the Factor Meals breakfasts for the first time. Probably the best eggs I've ever had in my life. I was like, what? They're like, I haven't even ventured off. I do the breakfast shakes, but he did the eggs. He said they were the best eggs ever. So anyway, head over to factormeals.com, use that promo code Factor Wolfpack50, and start your meal plan today. All right. I want to move on from this. All I want to do is say thank you for getting it, Andre Petro. Thank you for getting and understanding exactly what we're talking about. You don't want your gringo sex traffic workers. You don't want these gringos over there prostituting, trafficking, kidnapping, and fucking with 13, 12, and 13-year-olds, causing a litany of issues in your communities. You don't want that. We don't want that here either. I'm glad we can agree on that. Thank you that we can agree on that. Next, Border Patrol returns fire across the border. We do have these incidents. That's the big news. That's what the news wants you to see, is that we're doing that. I don't know. It's not so much of a firefight, but again, going back to, we're trying to get rid of this. This is why we need to secure our borders, because this is what's coming across the border. It's sex trafficking, $238 billion. So put that in perspective for you. And Beth and Greg could back me up on this. since they got all the society and culture TMZ style news, they'll know Taylor Swift and the Swiftie organization is in $800 million a year, upwards of almost $1 billion with a B. Think about how many people support and fund. Think about a Taylor Swift concert. Think about all the little girls around the world, all your little Swifties. Think about how many households have a Swiftie in the United States. Think about that. Close your eyes right now while you're driving, listening to the show. Close your eyes. Just kidding. Don't do that and sue me. Keep your eyes open, but keep them shut while keeping them open while thinking about what I'm saying as you're listening to me. How many houses in just your neighborhood have a Swiftie in them? Okay. And that equals $800 million. That's a lot of fucking Swifties. 238 billion with a B for Biden. 238 billion for George Bush. Billion. The B there. No reference. I'm not saying these guys are involved in it. I'm just using their names because they have a B as in Bush or Obama in them. $238 billion in sex trafficking. That means there are that many hundreds of billions of dollars more people than there are Swifties, if that makes sense. That's a lot. If you think about how many Swifties are, they equal $1 billion. Think about how many creepy pedos, sex traffickers that are engaging in sex trafficking and prostitution and all that stuff in the United States. That's a big number and it needs to be reduced. It has to be reduced. Kids are suffering and everybody should be concerned about that. As a father of 5, it's one of the most important things in my life to me. So that's where this starts. That $238 billion starts right here.
He is showing the suspected cartel members fleeing after firing shots at agents. No one was injured on either side. DHS sources telling News Nation that the cartel members were attempting to smuggle a group across the river, but none of them made it onto U.S. soil. News Nation was the only outlet on the scene as multiple agencies joined Border Patrol agents in the investigation. Drones were deployed for surveillance, and the elite border attack unit, which you're looking at now, was deployed. They were armed and ready and arrived to secure the area.
Oh my gosh. Does that guy look like the type of guy that's just bringing across an innocent family that's just trying to flee from political persecution across the border? No, that's not what they're doing. That's not what they're moving. They don't need guns to protect themselves from that. Not those kind of guns. Not shooting at Border Patrol agents. I think we all want the same thing. We just don't want to say it, and the media doesn't want to let us believe it. Meanwhile,
I'm so sorry. So many people are getting attacked. The children. They don't understand. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Remember, Selena Gomez is also an actress. Music star, actress, all the above. Listen, you're crying about all your people. I wish people would cry that hard or give that much of a shit about the sex traffic victims in this country. I wish people would make it a big deal. I'm passionate about this because I live in the skateboard culture and everybody's about anti-KKK, anti-Nazi. These mothers have never seen a KK member or a Nazi at a skate park in the last 20 years. But there is a pedophile at the skate park every single day. And all they care about is rough and tumble. I'm anti-Nazi. Great. We're all anti-Nazi. It's pretty safe to say, even though I'm not sure anybody knows what a Nazi is anymore, because the right-wing people will call the communist lefties Nazis, and the Nazis will call the right's fascist Nazis. So everybody's a freaking Nazi these days. But now you actually have real-life pedophiles that you know are creeping on kids. There's no kids with them at the park. They don't have a fucking skateboard. They're just sitting there watching, videoing, and nobody has the balls to go up there and tell them to F off because we're afraid to hurt feelings or ask them what they're doing there. We get it's a free country. You can do what you want, but we know. You know. What if your little anti-Nazi patches were anti-pedo patches? You think a pedo would want to sit on a bench and watch a group of skaters, of half the skaters in the skate park had anti-pedo patches on their little jackets instead of anti-Nazis, because there aren't any Nazis to care. Wouldn't you rather wear an anti-pedo shirt and risk getting in a real life fight with a pedo since you're going to come in contact with a pedophile every single day of your life? You can wear the anti-Nazi shit because there aren't any Nazis in the city. They're not going to fuck with you because they don't come to the city. They live in a trailer park, in some rural community on meth, and they're too sickly to do anything anyway. And they're cowards on top of that. So they're not going to mess with you. Why don't you wear something that's actually meaningful, that actually creates chaos in your communities, like an anti-pedophile emblem, or an anti-motorcycle gang, or an anti-crip, or anti-blood? You won't do that because you know you'll get your ass kicked, and you're not that guy. You wear the anti-Nazi shit because you virtue signal like you are that guy, but in real life, you're not that guy. You're just a pussy that wants to be that guy. If you were really that guy, you would be trying to get all the anti-gang shit out of the communities. You would try to be getting all the anti-motorcycle club stuff out of your community. You try to get the anti-pedophile stuff out of your communities, not anti-Nazi shit that doesn't really even exist in your communities. You're not that guy. I wish Selena Gomez gave a shit about something as much as she gives a shit about illegal aliens, people who have committed crimes going across the board, getting sent back home, people that have given real immigrants that are really trying to get away from political persecution a bad name. Get them the F out. I take pride every time that a pedophile is taken out of a church and exposed. Good. I'm glad, because he gives all the other Christians a bad name. Whenever a cop is exposed for doing something vile and evil, like Daniel Penny in Louisiana, covered that case on Fair Side. Whenever somebody like a Daniel Penny is exposed, good. I don't want anybody to tarnish the badge that I worked so hard, that I did the right thing day in and day out and tried to be a living example of that badge and to my last name. And somebody that tarnishes that badge needs to go away, obviously. Why is Selena Gomez crying for the illegal immigrants that have committed crimes, multiple crimes? The executive order, what Trump asked for was to deport illegal immigrants that have committed violent felony crimes with a emphasis on multiple violent assaults and felony crimes, multiple offenders. I wish Selena cared that much about the victims as she does about the actual shitbags. And again, I apologize for swearing. That was my last one. In funner news, moving on, Karoline Leavitt. Part of my job podcasting, especially doing Fox News, again, smash the like button, hit the subscribe bell, please, and share this show out, and give me a 5-star rating and review if you can. That would be awesome. We work really hard on this channel to give you guys free, independent news, and it costs you nothing to be a part of this. All you have to do is hit like and subscribe. That would help, or share us on Facebook and Instagram. That would help out greatly too. So let me tell you this. You guys know that, for years, even on Failure to Stop, press secretaries have always annoyed me. Especially when they, again, gaslight you and talk about transparency, and they are the least transparent of anyone. But there is a warmer welcome, and I followed KGP so closely. You guys know it. I've done so many shows on Karine Jean-Pierre, Luc Picard. You guys know I've done a lot. I've covered her in depth, and all the crazy outlandish. Sometimes I feel sorry for her. Sometimes I don't. I mean, like, what a train wreck. But now I want to show you the difference. This is why I couldn't stand KGP. I mean, this is why I had mixed feelings about KGP. She wasn't the right one for the job. She was a DEI hire. She was not good at her job. She was a DEI hire, and it was evident that she was a DEI hire because she was terrible at her job. She wasn't very good. She never had the right answers, and she got flustered, and she could barely speak. Now, day one being a press secretary would have to be, I remember, if you go back to my very first podcast with Mike the Cop on Failure to Stop when I was on the Drinking Bros Network, you can see me, I'm like doing this the whole show. my voice is crackling kind of. I'm really nervous in my speech and my tone, and I'm rocking back and forth. And, I was very, very nervous. And I was only talking on podcasts, not to a live audience. And I wasn't going to have to answer any of your questions. Imagine being a press secretary and having to get in a room full of vicious animal, savage reporters, and then having to articulate an answer to a question that could be a wide variety of questions. And you're doing this day in and day out. Every day are new questions, new problems. I mean, this has to be your entire existence is politics. So I understand the crackling and the nervousness. But let me show you the difference between the youngest ever press secretary, how she conducts herself in her very first press secretary versus KJP, did her first appearance. And what was the message between the two? Let me show you what I'm talking about. Some of you guys are like, what? Where are we going now, Eric? Here we go.
Who are we? Good to see all of you. It's an honor to be here with all of you. A lot of familiar faces in the room, a lot of new faces. And President Trump is back, and the golden age of America has most definitely begun. The Senate has already confirmed 5 of President Trump's exceptional cabinet nominees: Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. It is imperative that the Senate continues to confirm the remainder of the president's well-qualified nominees as quickly as possible. As you have seen during the past week, President Trump is hard at work fulfilling the promises that he made to the American people on the campaign trail. Since taking the oath of office, President Trump has...
Let me stop right there, right? You understand what I'm saying? Like you see the rhythm, the attitude, the confidence. That is so hard. Oh my gosh, that is so hard. She is reading. She's looking up for you audio listeners. She's looking down for only a second. She's looking back up to the crowd. She's making eye contact with the crowd, going back to her notes. She's articulate. You can tell she's out of breath. That's because the adrenaline is coursing through her veins. It's starting to take over, but she's harnessing it because she has practiced for this. She's waited this moment her whole life. She's a liberal arts. She went to a liberal arts college. She's a college graduate, obviously. She was an athlete. She got her college scholarship through softball. She's been in some probably stressful, intense situations in softball and everything, but nothing has ever prepared her for what she's going through now. There's 3 balls, 2 strikes, 9th inning, down by 1, and the bases are loaded. It's all up to her. This is the last and final pitch. This is it for her. This is that level of stress, and she does it perfectly, in my opinion. But it was also the tone and the bravado and the optimism. That's the word I like to be using. I use that in this Irish Journal that interview that it is. The optimism that I like to see right now. It's this going forward that's exciting to me. Let me show you KGP's very first. Just a snippet. This was the intro. This was KGP's intro on her very first press meeting.
Acutely aware that my presence at this podium represents a few firsts. I am a Black, gay, immigrant woman, the first of all 3 of those to hold this position. I would not be here today if it were not for generations of barrier-breaking people before me. I stand on their shoulders. If it were not for generations of barrier-breaking people before me, I would not be here. Almost a year ago.
But let's go. Obviously, boobs, right? Let's play all the cards, and let's get a push-up brawl, and let's show a little bit cleavage on our first time out. Black, female, lesbian. Make sure it's all about me first. Just let you guys know this is what I'm about. And she doesn't have a stutter, so I'm not being mean. But what I'm saying is that's not practice. She spent so much time doing this. With her hands. She practiced more about that than she did, about being some kind of like reverend or something. I don't know what she was trying to channel there. As a podcaster, we do channel things. I kind of channel like a little Orson Welles, Glenn Beck guy. I liked Orson Welles, which made me in turn like Glenn Beck. And then I've also been to Glenn Beck's private vault where I got to see Orson Welles' microphone. So I've always had this like storytelling ability because I grew up and I only liked him as a kid because I love the stories that Glenn Beck would tell before his thing. So I do channel a little bit. And I also channel a little bit of a Ross Patterson because that's where I got my start in podcasting. And when I got the job, which was the best, highest paying job I had at that moment in my life after leaving law enforcement to go work for Ross Patterson and Drinking Bros, I wanted to be the best I could be, right? So I watched every episode, you know, because I think I signed my contract and it was like 4 or 5 months before I ever did my first episode after I signed my contract. But I listened to every episode. I wanted to be so learned. I wanted to be so caught up. I cared so much about that job that I had. And so, yeah, of course, I channel a little bit. Hey, baby, Ross Patterson. You know, if I was a baseball player and Nolan Ryan was my coach, I might pitch a little bit like Nolan Ryan. I might have some Nolan Ryan kind of tendencies. You know, maybe it's something that he does with his glove or something he does with the soil. Maybe it's just the way he steps off the mound. I don't know, right? But we kind of mimic who we're taught by. So I don't know who KJP was trying to channel there. You know, I don't know, but it didn't work for. But you see the difference here. We start off with optimism and going forward, and KJP comes out and just brings race, sex, and things. And that is what the American people were so tired of, and that's why we think that we're winning, and that's why we're okay with this freezing of all this nonsensical federal spending and funding. We're done with all of it. We voted against all of that stuff because we want that to go away. We want the KGB. We want to stop making that the forefront of our daily lives. We don't care that you're black, KJP. We don't care that you're a lesbian. We don't care that you're the first one. Nobody cares. Are you good at your job or are you not good at your job? She came out, Leavitt came out, Karoline Leavitt came out. She didn't say one thing about her being the youngest white female ever to be in front of the press secretary. She didn't go on about how she got nominated to do this and how she never wanted to be a part of legacy media, which I love, is one of the big things she's always said that in her interviews is that she dabbled in legacy media for only a short time, but she says, I'm so glad I never went down that dark hole. I love it because I'm anti legacy media as well. So I feel you. So I'm on board with her, but also she was willing to answer questions. She wasn't a circle back girl. She's not, oh, let's revisit that girl. She's not like, I'm going to put that on. I'm going to refer that girl. No, right now she's answering the question. She's articulating the answer. So far, I really like what I see out of Karoline Leavitt. Listen, if anybody's going to hold her accountable more than anyone, it'll be me because, you know, I happen to look at press secretary. If that's your job in life, you should take it extremely seriously and you shouldn't suck at it. And KJP sucked at it. And so, and the girl that she replaced, that they got rid of, who now works as a CNN correspondent, Jen Levin, what was her name? I forgot her name now, but the one before her, the blonde girl, she was even worse. She was the circle back girl. You know, if that's your one job in life, you should be so studied on it, and you should be so aware. But I mean, like KJP, you could tell like there's some days where she probably had a bender the night before. You know, no, if that's your sole job in life, and your job is to address the world. I would never be doing that job hungover. I'll tell you that. If they gave me that job, I'd take it more seriously than anything else in my whole life. Not like this podcast where I screw up constantly, but I'm not addressing the world. And I'm not getting paid as much money as she is. Let me address the chats in our last few minutes here. Not Bar Talk Podcast. I'm going to have to go listen to the Not Bar Talk Podcast. Hey, Eric, have you thought about signing up for the social media press pass? We're having someone on board for Fox News. I have actually have a meeting today about that. I don't know if I'd be so good at that or not. I am an imposter. I was a law enforcement officer. Political news was not something that I ever had on my to-do list ever in life. I'm just learning how to do these things. I'm learning how to articulate news, how to read news. It's kind of more of a passion for me right now, but I wouldn't say I'm good enough. You know what I mean? I'm good enough at what I do, but I don't know that I'm on the caliber to get inside of a White House room, I don't know. And I got this book deal coming out, by the way, Pig Latin, seriously funny, true story. If you want to grab my book, it is the #1 release for its genre for Simon & Schuster for this fall. Atria Books. It's comes out August 25th, but the pre-sales are up now, and I really, really need the Wolfpack to get up on the pre-sale. The pre-sale kind of, right now the book is scheduled to go out to every Target and Costco, but to move me up on the lists, I would love to be up on the list before the book even comes out, because this book is hilarious. It's funny. It's apolitical. That's why I got the book deal that I did. One of the bigger first-time book deals that's been given out, and it's because the book is apolitical. It's going to be huge. It's going to be awesome. I'm not saying that. I never said that about anything I've ever done this before, but the book is just it's so genuine and honest and funny that you everybody's going to like this book, because it's endearing. It'll make you cry. Honest to God, it'll make you cry. It'll make you laugh. I wrote this book 4 or 5 years ago, and from the day that I finished it, everybody, to include Jesse Weissman from my favorite podcast, one of my favorite podcasts, Ross Patterson Revolution, she was like, you have to do this book, Eric. You have to finish it, but you have to get this thing published. When I sent it over to Nick Palmisano, and I didn't even know Nick Palmisano, but I was a big fan of Ranger Up and Range 15, the movie, which he had written, and a lot of the other things that he had done and worked on. I was just a big, sheepdog apparel and all those things. I was a big fan of Nick Palmisano. And when he took a look at my book, and he was like, what are you doing with this? And, when he believed in this book, and I knew it was going to be something special right then. And it is. It's a special book. It's going to change the way you perceive law enforcement. It's not going to make you like them or hate them anymore. It's just going to give you a different perspective on what it's like, what it's really like to be a cop. It's a really true, funny, hysterical, but also sad at times book. So you're really going to enjoy this. And if you could, please go and buy the pre-sale now. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Books A Million, wherever. Just go ahead and order it and buy it. Also, I was supposed to do something today with a drawing, but because I didn't have a producer today, we're going to postpone that till next week. So you can still do it if you want, but you can screenshot that you bought the book, or my book, or the book that we had on this week, on Failure to Stop, and which that book was this book right here, A Murder on Campus, The Professor, the Cop in North Carolina. If you buy either my book or that book, screenshot it and show that you have subscribed to this show either on YouTube or podcast, then we'll put you in for a drawing and we'll send you a copy of that book, a signed copy. But if you want to be on the email list too, you can Instagram me. But I really appreciate you guys heading over to Amazon right now. Here's the book, Pig Latin, a seriously funny true story, and getting it. All right, let me hit a couple more chats here. Is it funny haha or funny gay? Both. Greg says, who's reading the voiceovers? Who's doing all the voiceovers for an audiobook? I'm not sure yet, because I'm signed to a major book agency. So that would be, I think Simon Schuster, I think in my contract, I have the first right to try it. If they don't like it, they have the right to say, we didn't like the way you read, because, obviously, like, I'm a good storyteller, but what if I was a crappy reader? What if I read like, for every Colombian deport, you know what I mean? Some people can talk and not read. Fortunately, I can talk and read, so maybe it'll be good enough to do that. If not, I'm hoping for Mark Wahlberg. Now, speaking of Mark Wahlberg, I would love nothing more in life than for Mark Wahlberg to read my book, because I think he could make a movie out of it. I think it would be a hilarious movie, and I would want him to play my part in the movie. It'd be hilarious, and I think this is just a funny joke. So if any of you guys can start, like, I'll make a post. If any of y'all can start tagging Mark Wahlberg or his agent in any of my posts, that would be hilarious. I would really appreciate that. So I appreciate all of you guys who have already bought the book. Bones Cold says, I've already commented in Legal Shift Chat just to make John's day even more miserable. Marky Mark, everyone tag him. Yes, Forever Road says, read like Kid Rock on Joe Dirt. Yeah, there you go. Forever Road podcast. Thank you. Armory Knight, if you read it, then you're going to start telling stories you didn't include. Oh my, really, Armory Knight? You've been a Armory Knight. You have been here for a very long time in our live chats and all the shows that I've been on, and you're going to do me like that? As if you don't like it? You wouldn't be around this long, Armory Knight, if you didn't like a little tansy rant. If my ADHD wasn't the highlight of your day, you wouldn't be in almost every single live chat. Yeah, okay. You see where I'm going. Folk around and find out says, exactly, Tyler. Tell her, I need to pre-order Eric's book. Still feeling poopy pants about it taking 68 years to come out. Tyler, don't feel poopy pants. It all had to come out right there. The reason why it didn't come out, and I can talk about it now, and then I'm going to let you guys go. I can talk about it now. The reason why it didn't come out in 2024 is because Simon Schuster won. The book deal was a big deal. So they've got to get their money back on this book. They have to release this book when they know they're going to get the most amount of money out of it. And other people that were releasing books in those genres, They didn't want to have to compete with those because it's less money for them on mine. Does that make sense? And then politically, it wasn't the right season to do it. It hurt my feelings, and the fact that I wasn't allowed to talk about it. Listen, like I signed my book deal like almost like 2 years ago is when I first had a deal with Simon Schuster and Atria Books, and then I got really excited and I started telling people like you guys, only for them to say, okay, now we're going to push it back. And then we're going to push it back. And then we want to do this with the book. So that means we're going to push it to here. It was very depressing for me, but now it's not being pushed out. There is a date. I have all the stuff on there. It's the date is August 25th. We actually just did our book portal, which is all the shows that they are reaching out to get me on. So I get to go on this really cool book tour and get to be on a bunch of podcasts. Fingers crossed I get to go on some of my bigger ones like Andy Stump that I've always wanted to, or Black Rifle, or Jesus, Joe Rogan would be sweet, but who knows, or at least Glenn Beck, maybe, fingers crossed, Sarah Gonzalez, fingers crossed. So, starting now, we really are trying to get that push because we're at the exact 6 months mark. Actually, Monday this week was the very first start of phase 1 of marketing. So it's kind of like a slow marketing phase rollout, but listen, every single book right now counts. If you support me, if you support what we do, and I hate asking for your money. I hate asking you guys to do things, especially when it comes from me. But I really want to see this book on the New York Times bestseller, and not just the New York Times bestseller, but I think this book will change lives. I think it'll change the lives of future police officers. It provides empathy. It reminds humans that cops are humans, and it reminds cops that humans are humans. And already the cops that have read it have said that this book has changed their lives. One officer who's got 25 years plus of law enforcement said that this opened up 25 years of a Pandora's box of emotions that he's never experienced. And his wife had to hold him on the foot of his bed while he sobbed, laughed, and cried for a prolonged, he said he felt like he's in some kind of a therapy session, that this never happened. He's never cried like that before. He's like, I just got 25 years of crying out of my system because of your book. He says, my wife sat with me and just held me like a baby as I cried my eyes out because this book just opened up, just happy, sad, proud, every emotion possible. By the time I got to chapter 15, I just exploded. And my wife, and so I know that this book is going to change lives, and it's going to change your life. It really is. That sounds hyperbolic. It sounds stupid. But that's why this book has taken so long, Tyler, is because, I don't know that I've done anything aside from parenting perfectly. I'm a pretty good parent of my 5 children. I do a pretty good job of raising good kids. I spend the most time parenting. But that book is the closest thing to perfection that I've ever worked on. I mean, I left no page, pun unintended, no page unturned. I went through that book so many times because I wanted to do something for law enforcement. I wanted to do something for first responders that's never been done. And I wanted to literally do what I've done on this podcast for years. And that's bridge the gap between, and I just wanted you to feel what we feel. I wanted you to have a ride along, and it was written mainly for people that aren't cops. And it just so happens that cops actually love this book. I thought there was no way cops are going to love this book, that cops are going to care about this book at all, because cops are cops and we live that life. Why do we want to watch it? And so far, every single cop that has written me back has said it's a game changer for them. And one cop even said that they're going to try to make it part of their recommended reading for their academy list, which is going to be a big deal for me, because I think that everybody should read this book, especially if they want to become a cop. And I think if you didn't want to become a cop before and you read my book, you might want to become a cop or get involved somehow in police life. So big fun. But I thank you so much, Tyler, for hanging in there, for giving me those 68 years, of your support and service. Thank you so much. All right, guys, I have to go. It's time for jujitsu. And then I have Muay Thai tonight. You can see how that's going. Thanks for asking. How's jujitsu going, Eric? Still a fucking white belt. Will be for life, because I am terrible at jujitsu. Muay Thai, I am either going to learn Muay Thai or I'll just simply die from probably a brain bleed. Obviously, I'm not good at blocking anything. Hence why I've had a black eye now for 3 weeks, different eyes. Now it's the opposite eye. It was this eye last week. Now it's this eye. It's because I suck at combat sports. I don't know what to tell you. Hopefully you're not that disappointed in me, but that's the truth. Guys, I hope you enjoyed Fox News today. You guys mean the world to me. We promoted a 16-year-old to blue belt last night. Thanks, Greg. Oh, Greg. You know what? I'm going to do jiu-jitsu with you, Greg, but I'm going to bring my black belt in crowbar hitsu, which is a black belt in my crowbar hits you. Black belt. So when my crowbar hits you, we'll see how your jiu-jitsu does for you. Might be a white belt in jiu-jitsu, but I'm a black belt in crowbar hits you. No, thank you so much for that. I don't care. You know, it's about the journey. Yeah, it's about the journey. It's about stretching out, keeping that animalistic mindset. You know what I'm talking about. Guys, I appreciate it. As G.I. Joe says, maybe you didn't know about cartels firing on Border Patrol. Maybe you didn't know about Andre Petro or Karoline Leavitt. But now you do know. Oh, I forgot to talk about the Doomsday Clock. We'll talk about that another episode, Doomsday Clock. Until next time, guys. See you on the next one. Guns up, giddy up. Love you guys. Cheers.